What does it take for us to build workplaces and a world that is fit for the future? A question that plagues many a leader and many an organization. How do we learn from our experiences? Are we shaping ourselves and our workplaces to be fit for the future? What does it take to invest in people and nurture success? How do we ensure that our investments in diversity, equity, and inclusion are delivering to the intended goals? Are we seeing the very invisible responsibility that most employees carry, that of being caregivers? What does it take to build a caregiver friendly workplace? Are leaders caregivers? What can leaders and organizations learn from caregivers and their experiences? How do we create safe spaces that enable inclusion? Is this something that is holding, especially women, back from the C-suite? We are delighted to bring to you a series of conversations around the idea of building future-fit corporate. Feroza Engineer.
Yay.
Hi, Feroza.
Hey Bhavana, good evening.
I have been waiting for this conversation because just look at our screen right now. It is nice and bright, thanks to the colors that you choose. And not just the colors, I am sure the quality of the conversation that we will have. But to introduce you to the audience, I'd like to give a little background. Feroza's work with over 450 organizations for the last 21 years has helped her realize her true passion to bring authenticity and humor into real life problems. Her core areas of expertise lie in CXO performance coaching, development, building organization learning architecture, measuring impact through learning analytics, and neuroscience based leadership development. As an ICF certified coach, she has coached a range of people, including CXOs, startup founders, national athletes, graphic designers, and LGBTQ professionals, covering the whole gamut, right from coaching curriculum, building coaching frameworks, and internal capability. Her coaching interventions have proven success stories that have resulted in measurable goals, um, achievements, and promotions. Some of her most recent work has centered around conducting empathy interviews, which we will learn a little more about. Given that now I'm interviewing, I might get some feedback that led to leadership discussions around talent and growth agenda for the next normal, the digital leadership, creation of a unique behavioral skills framework for the new age leader centered around clarity, courage, and communication. And I love it, Feroza, paradoxical leadership, dissecting leadership dichotomies to lead with paradoxes.
Bhavana, seriously. Stop.
Lovely, lovely. So, no wonder those of people who have been following us will know how you are the perfect guest for this conversation.
Thank you. Oh my God.
I would like to state and on record that I am touched by the excitement you demonstrated about these conversations and in participating in that. Love it. Thank you for being the cheerleader and the ally for Caregiver Saathi. What would you like to tell our audience about you and how you relate?
So I think I'm very curious, and I really feel curiosity is an antidote to anxiety. I really realized that early in life, and maybe that's why sometimes my enthusiasm or my energy, lovely like masquerading the anxiety behind. Um, and I think Bhavna, literally, it is that I just discovered you one day through a conversation and the kind of work that you're doing, and I was like, wow, here is someone really talking about well-being in the true sense, and I'm hoping we get to have that conversation because I don't, I don't just look at this as caregiving.
Hmm.
but you're taking that care as well. It's a system, it's an ecosystem. You can't just build it only with the giver. And I've been waiting to tell you this. Like, I know I've been following the kind of work that you do, and yes, always I have your back. Um, because in organizations, and I'm of course just talking about the kind of work that we do, um, well-being and care uh, somehow are seen as very soft things.
You're
Or
right.
I don't know. Do you hear that?
All the time.
And how do you respond to that? Like literally, because like these are your core words. You know what I mean? Like this is your.
Yeah.
Uh, I would love to know that as well. Like how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I say, it is soft. It is like holding sand in your hand, you know.
Yeah.
It is so soft that it is difficult to hold it without a very high degree of mindfulness and a very high degree of intention and awareness that you are holding sand in your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what comes up for me right now. I could go into a longer conversation, but I do think that, it is a cliche to also say that soft skills are the hardest, they're really the core, etc., etc.
Mm,
Um, I think the reason that soft skills may have started was that, uh, they are difficult to put into data, into tangible uh, observations, measures, etc. However, they are like the glue that kind of keeps everything together. And it
mm-hmm,
is really important to build these things.
mm-hmm,
Um, but they run a risk of becoming invisible over time,
mm,
right?
mm,
So that which is today invisible, so like if I were to use Gestalt, I would say that some things are figural and some things are background, right? Care and well-being tends to become so background,
mm, mm,
but unless you're mindful of what is in the background, you will not see the figural picture well.
mm.
And sometimes you do need to alternate. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
So you were telling me, how do you relate, and what is your understanding or experience with caregiving?
Um, I think I have come from a background where there has been some ailment in the family or the extended family, and we all have kind of roped in. So that has been first-hand kind of experience, and uh, I've also been very fortunate through, before I started my entrepreneurship journey with all the organizations that I've been. Yes, some of them have these archaic laws, uh, yet I think what has been the distinguishing factor is either great leadership, that is immediate leadership, that can really mobilize, show courage when it's required, or show care and sensitivity when it's required, so that so deeply that has been my first time experience. And also after having been just in the thick of things in leadership development, you do kind of instantly understand that sometimes the way you lead at work is also the way you lead at home.
Yeah,
And
and
it's not
vice
so,
versa.
yeah, and it's not so over complicated, or it's not so black and white at the same time, that you can't understand these styles or these patterns. And that is why I don't think we can sit here and make opinions on it, versus it has to be unique to that team, to that individual. What well-being means to them. Same
So
with, yeah.
So I was very keen, when I've been looking at your work, and I say that, working with so many organizations and so many leaders in so many forms, the first thing that I'd like for you to comment on is, what have you seen as the arc or the trajectory of the challenges that leaders come to you with over a period of time? Have you seen that stay same, or has that shifted, or how do you anticipate it to shift also over time?
I think here maybe I would look at two angles. When I'm working like in a consulting kind of strategic assignment, it's almost like a group-based conversation. What are these group of leaders at this level of leadership going through? And those could be group themes,
Hmm.
right? Versus in individual one-on-one conversations and coaching. I'm glad that I'm able to make safe spaces where the whole individual comes for the conversation, not just the leader. And that is where sometimes I realize that here's the bifurcation further. Male leaders versus female leaders. I know I'm throwing in a gender lens here.
Right.
I'm not making a biased statement, I'm aware of that, but let's just say uh, to bifurcate that, to give an example or to throw light on the fact that problems look very different at home uh,
Hmm.
for male leaders versus female leaders in that lens of patriarchal roles, or if you're coming from that conditioning, that background, because
Use an example or an anecdote to help illustrate.
sure, sure. Uh, we are always hearing on social media, superwoman, supermom, supergirl, super leader. She can do this, she can do that. I'm like, she's tired. She's
Yeah.
also super tired. Because the gender role conformity does not stop. You have to
Yeah.
conform to certain roles at work, but then you're doing the same at home. In fact, you're
Yeah.
going back and doing like almost what I hear sometimes, double shift, triple shift,
Yeah.
or and that's not the case with every other male leader, right? So that's where if you look at the whole even caregiving outlook, even in a team engagement, uh, I would say that would look different as well. And
Okay.
that's why here, not operating from a gender lens versus operating from a leadership lens. That if, again, example, there are organizations who take the pain and who actually check in with team members on, okay, what does well-being mean to you? Whether it is through anonymous surveys or through focus group conversations or through town halls. Some organizations do that. Like, what does well-being mean? Does it mean learning opportunities? Does it mean time off work? Does it mean growth opportunities? And like you want to go down that road. What does it mean? And then appropriately curate communities of learning or communities of support, because that is what was asked, or that is what is allowed, and what is allowed is culture over a period of time. So there are organizations who take time, and it takes like other things. For example, I think Mastercard took over 22 years to, and they were the first ones in the industry to do the whole pay parity piece. But it takes time, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
that's truly my lens. And
Hmm.
if I may add, like a lot of startups are focusing on personalizing their leadership with their teams.
Say
So,
more.
so for example, you are in charge of what growth means to you at work, but here is the buffet, or here is what it would look like.
Hmm.
So you have kind of set some organizational bound expectations, but hey, you can take charge of your growth. Here are two, three things you could do.
Right.
You're giving empowerment, and you're giving responsibility. And
Right.
that is also the cornerstone of care. Like I'm doing this as a responsibility, but I'm also empowering you to not take this for granted.
Yeah.
Because the kind of a corporate setup, you don't want to set that pattern. You still want to be consistent as a leader. That all right. If this what well-being means to you, taking time off work, doing this, that's great. But what is
Mm.
it that you're doing as a leader consistently with the team to kind of set in this as a culture, not as
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there are organizations that maybe make curate this piece a little bit more. But when you do these blanket activities on Women's Day or Family Day or Children's Day or Men's Day, but then you don't have paternity leave.
Yeah.
That's where the whole leadership dichotomy, that's where how are you handling those conversations? Because today's generation that's entering the workforce, whether it's our 20 somethings, they are loyal to the person, they are loyal to you first, then the brand, then the company. Uh, so how are you kind of personalizing that? What does care mean for that person? Um, Again, Bhavna, to give you an example, uh, one of my leaders that I was taking, like, just one of those days called me in the evening of call that I really don't know how to handle this team member. Really, like, I've just had it with him. I've just really had it with him. And I'm like, all right, let's just, tell me what happened. He's once again not come to work. He's what because his pet parrot is not doing okay, and the pet parrot is really sick, and he's again taken the day off. I know we are giggling, we are laughing, but maybe for that person, that's caregiving is another thing towards a
It
pet,
is.
towards a person or a plant or uh, and these are the moments where I'm always coaching leaders that maybe, of course, this is a coaching opportunity, we'll get there. This is a feedback opportunity, we'll get there. But maybe for our learning, how do we respond in the moment so that this doesn't get worse? So it's kind of like, breaking it down, but I also know through experience that it is these moments
Yeah.
when they tie up, you truly understand that okay, my leader has my back, or she has my back. Um, I know this will not be used against me
Mm.
because then
Yeah.
that is not care.
And that ties in so beautifully with the idea of psychological safety that we've been talking about, and saying that, it is so important to have a sense of psychological safety if you have to be at your best. Yeah. And you notice that what you're saying is that when leaders come to you, they tend to be that women come with a whole different set of challenges in general, and so do men. Men have a different set of challenges. It seems to be that the pressure of household responsibilities and therefore unpaid care seems to be tad higher for, or more than tad higher for women, is a trend, and it is important to be able to see the process. So, for
Correct.
example, is not get caught with the parrot, that is just symbolic, but to understand that there is a certain emotional need.
Absolutely. And that takes time, Bhavna, like
Yeah.
that truly takes time.
Of course it does. And, I would think that we have been brought up in our educational system in a certain way. Management education also has been a certain way. And now we are trying to push the boundary there and say that, listen, emotional intelligence or intuition or care is an important skill. Tell me about courage. What, in your experience and working with leaders, how has the definition of courage evolved? And what would you call courage for leaders today?
I think we need a separate conversation on this, Bhavana. uh, because here is where I absolutely start. And that entirely depends on who we are having the conversation with. If it's come through the CHRO, if it's come through the founder of the organization, or sometimes we hear words like, okay, yeah, this leader really needs to demonstrate more courage. Like, what can we do? Or we'll hear sentences like, really needs to work on his empathy, her empathetic communication. Or in a team setup, three teams have merged. They're coming from different geographies. Leader has changed. They just need to collaborate better. They need to collaborate more.
Mm,
And I'm just like, okay, we will first pause. First, let's take a deeper piece. Lack of collaboration is the gap that you see.
mm,
But why is this gap created in the first place? So first, let's talk about trust, communication, conflict management styles, their love language, their fight language, their baggage from the previous leader, their G's and O's, the current organizational goals and obstacles. How is HR? Like there is so much to this for you to just confirm that they need more collaboration, or point in case this leader needs to be more courageous. Maybe in a particular situation, courage means to shut up for someone.
mm.
That also means courage.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe for a certain leader, courage would literally mean those 10 to 15 seconds of that moment of acknowledging someone and apologizing.
Mm,
Courage could be to ask that question or to give that so courage is very different. You are seeing that as a outcome, that what
mm,
you want your leader to do or not do.
mm. Yeah,
Uh, but there needs first we go through like a series of conversations, some to first figure out like what is it. Uh,
yeah.
and I still know through experience, still know through research that courage does not come with a calendar invite. I always tell my clients this, that you are never going to have a predetermined calendar block knowing that tomorrow at 4 p.m. I have to demonstrate courage. I think that's never happening. So let us truly first understand in the moment what happens to you,
Mm,
and then backtrack. Then backtrack. However, I will still tell you if I have to look at my client data and we really use data to understand that okay, uh, for me also to maybe overall understand that okay, this is what is happening in this industry currently. And sometimes the data does show me that a lot of women leaders are still focusing on the core communication concerns,
mm,
conflict management, stakeholder management,
mm.
gaining visibility in the organization, building your brand,
Right,
and the most common one, managing upwards.
right.
A lot is got to do with communication as the base theme of
Right.
assertion, of influencing, of coaching, of managing upward.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what my data is showing that okay, here is every woman leader that has come to us for something, and here is what. Uh, versus here is my tiny little data point on even the male leader or uh, where the concerns are truly more around stakeholder management, truly more around how do I get that pitch right? How do I get that tech right? How do I win this? How do I keep the team brutally engaged to get the targets done? A little bit more deeply focused on these kind of driving skills and not so much nurturing skills or but I think that is where the balance is required, Bhavna. Like that is where the wholeness of leadership or courage cannot be seen in isolation.
Right.
Uh, you
See,
know, It's not
Yeah,
one.
so I'm so
Not one.
excited about this conversation. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not one skill. Like
Yeah.
it's not one.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is giving me so many thoughts at the same time. So I'm just thinking that if you were to visualize, for example, what is it, let's say in the theme of future fit corporates, what is it that leaders need to think about or do
Yeah,
vis-a-vis courage, building a sense of courage throughout the organization, at least for themselves to start with? Help paint a picture of what a leader with courage or an organization that has culture of courage demonstrates.
sure,
What happens with such a person?
sure. So when we talk about either leader future readiness, or when we look at here is where the trends are taking us, I think we need to be cognizant of both. Where is it that the trend is taking us? That means where is the larger populace thinking, doing, feeling, like what's happening around me? And that to a large extent is hybrid. So maybe the openness of, okay, if my future is hybrid, whether that is my team or it's even my geography or it's even my product or it's even the way I lead, it's no more just this or just me. It's a mix. Then how should my leadership show up?
Right.
So that's where maybe that's where when we look at courage, care, or communication, that okay, you have that lens. Now you know that you are not going to every time have the luxury of just 2 minutes walking across the cabin and settling your matter. You do not have that instant privilege luxury anymore. That means for you to articulate and just reflect for 2 minutes before shooting that email or before writing that on Slack or planning for a meeting or telling your EA to plan that. It's not instant. So when it's not instant for a leader, how are you doing this a little bit more meaningfully for your team? And does the and is that something consistent that we understand as a team if we are in a hybrid environment? Here are the reasons why we come to work.
Hmm.
Not some meaningless, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday work. I know you start with compliance. Probably that is how the brain works. First, you start with compulsory and compliance. Then you grind with collaboration. You
Yeah.
test and fail, you go ahead. That's really kind of human behavior. Like even during COVID, wear your mask. We didn't listen. The moment there were mask police and there were fines, and the government got stricter, got into compliance, we all started. So like, but the intentions are eventually to first figure out, okay, if my way of working is changing, that is more hybrid, more little remote, more meaningful, then how can my systems change first
Yeah.
to maybe support us there? So definitely one big trend, hybrid remote. Second one I also see, which is also a nice mix, that if it's hybrid, how is my leadership style, my leadership system, my culture processes, how are they modifying? Second, how am I also as a leader getting a little personal? Little, Bec- because again, I do not have the luxury of meeting you every day. Or if I do, and maybe let's say that's changed, you come back to full time, which a lot of organizations have. And a lot of them are still facing that concern of engagement, collaboration, just work life balance. So everyone is still facing that. So, how are you making your leadership processes also a little personal? Do you know individually in your team, even if there are 10 people, do you know how each one likes to be given feedback? I know, I know this might go like, what? You think I have time for 10 people? Yes, or maybe some form of consistency. Something. So, what aspects of your everyday leadership checkpoints are you making slightly personal? Because
Right.
pandemic, maybe that is something people have deeply realized that, okay, I know what is important for me personally, and maybe I know what's not. So, hey, a lot of team members have realized that. And I hear that as feedback as well. So that's why, knowing with the hybrid layer, how do you still make your leadership a little bit more personal?
Hmm. Tell me, why is this personal important?
Because here is why, and this is something I'll tell you that I use in our organization.
Hmm.
Um, like literally, when I changed my credentials on LinkedIn in 2020, having not the faintest idea of okay, and I was like, but let's figure, let's just keep it. I'm all about let's just keep the momentum, like just tick 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 tick. We'll see, because that's literally how I see courage, how I see all these heavy duty emotions. That just let's try, let's just move ahead. Um, I was like, okay, I know I will have to hire people eventually. I know this will happen, but like before I reach there, why don't I just deeply think about what do I want my little organization to stand for?
Right.
And I did spend a considerable amount of time, whether through empathy interviews, whether through a whole branding exercise involving people, past clients, yada touch points. That's where I realized that uh, the three brand values of trust, relatability, and authenticity.
Hmm.
Like if we are not who we are wholly, and it's okay, you don't have to get your whole self to work. You can get your best self to work or your good self. It is fine. You get whatever. I don't believe in get your whole self. Uh, uh, and if you are able to deeply collaborate through trust, knowing that everybody has a certain role to play,
Yeah.
that's where I have from day one empowered my team members with a very simple philosophy of number one, you will decide how you want to learn. Here is your stipend. So there is a learning stipend. But what
Hmm.
I learn what I'm like, it's all right. Like, you can learn whatever you want. You could even learn your passion area, your hobby, or just but
Hmm.
or let's have a conversation. It's cool.
Right.
There is that learning that needs to be made personal because choice is given.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second layer, okay, let's say you are taking care of finance for my organization. What else do you want to do? Oh, I think I might want to do law. I'm interested. Oh, great. Maybe you can look at all our copyrighted content information. Maybe is that something how you see growth here? So after learning, I have growth. Then you will
Hmm.
also decide, you will participate in your growth, because today's generation is also very clear on that I will decide that, not anybody else. So that's why Bhavna making that a little personal as well. And three, and the most important, what does well-being mean to you? So
Hmm.
December was very clear that I love playing my tennis. I am doing this. In a year, I will take X number of chuttis because I have my tennis tournaments. This is what it means to me. This is where I need your support. One team member is like, okay, I think I want to try my hand at yoga. I'm just coming back after mat leave. I want to do this. That is what is well-being for me right now. I'm like, great. Let's enroll you in a yoga class. So she's doing a yoga. So somewhere, if you have small teams, if you have meaning in your work, if you have purpose, then you thoda need to take that time and make your leadership a little bit personal with team members. So
And
that's what I.
yeah, and in your experience, making it personal or having that personal component helps up the performance, helps up the engagement. Um, if nothing else, just goodwill, and that's good enough, actually,
And
frankly.
you are very also easy to weed out the not so great engaging talent.
Right.
They might not take up the learning initiatives. They might
Yeah.
resist every growth opportunity. They may
Yeah.
not deliberately collaborate in a remote environment because they have not built trust. So, as
Yeah.
a leader, your style of leadership, maybe in an offline environment, you were earlier used to management, direct
Yeah.
management, or what you will hear in case studies and Harvard is a leadership style called managing by wandering.
Yeah.
This is a
By what?
style where you wander through the the factory floor. You wander through the office space, and you manage. You have conversations. You make little notes. But that, to a large extent, from a lot of tech companies, have thoda. So
Right.
what else are you imbibing in your style? How are you virtually keeping it engaging? How do you
Yeah.
meaningfully use those platforms? It doesn't mean that if you are approachable 24/7 doesn't mean you are accountable 24/7.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I hear the opposite. Even if I am accountable 24/7, please don't approach me. Here are my timings.
Yeah.
So that's why, Bhavna, making it maybe a little bit more personal. And if your environment and your culture supports that,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think you have rich experience in terms of working with leaders or working around themes of courage or care or transitions, and it would be very valuable to kind of understand how that equips. For example, you said on a couple of occasions that is well-being. So one, I'd like to get into what is your take, one, on well-being as an idea, and two, how it is being practiced today in organizations.
Different strokes for different folks.
Right. Right.
You are always going to hear the essence of inclusion from me, because
Right.
I truly feel that we could integrate systems, but inclusion takes time. It really
Right.
does. And that's why, like any other checkpoint, you know, if we were to just reverse 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
like that's when CSR was a thing,
Mm.
HR thing, the next step. And you
Mm.
look at now, it's either these DNI initiatives, uh,
Yeah.
or well-being.
Yeah.
You have well-being programs, you have
Yeah.
well-being certifications. Um,
Really, I hadn't heard about well-being certifications.
I'm not going to name, but I will later DM you and show you.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually know someone as well who's done that. Okay, anyway.
Wow.
So imagine what a revamp well-being has got. Something which you deserve by birth, something which is part of who you are,
Yeah.
right? Rest and rigor both are part of you. You
Yeah.
cannot decide my well-being measures, but sadly you are. So well-being is getting thoda intertwined with also mental health initiatives, with
Right.
with it is also getting confused with harassment-free workplaces, which would mean
Yes.
any kind of harassment, whether it's posh, whether it's digital, whether it's
Yeah.
online, uh,
Yeah.
right? Any
Yeah.
harassment workplaces. Well-being is getting clubbed with fun, fun engagement. FFF Fridays, well-being Fridays. There's one day dedicated to it. So much khichdi is happening with well-being, like right. Even if you ask an average team member at any layer or any cadre, like acha well-being ka matlab, or like what is well-being in your organization? So you will hear things like, oh, that yoga class, or
Mm.
we had a talk on periods. Oh yeah, we had a talk on financial literacy for the whole organization. Oh, we had that stress management. So it's
Yeah.
more activized, it's more templatized versus again making it slightly more genuine, slightly more intentional. That what is well-being in the areas of leading yourself at work? What does well-being mean to you? In areas of leading the team at work, and what does well-being mean to you in areas of leading your project? Basically,
Mm.
that's your org skills. So your self skills, your team skills, and your org skills. So like what is well-being, and what are
Yeah.
your people saying? Because there are also organizations under the whole garb of family run, family culture. We give a lot of benefits. We give medical insurance for self and family. We give reimbursement for petrol, for food, and people are milching it. People are
Mm.
milking it, people are maxing it. But sadly, those are the people who are also over a period of time very, very comfortable and not growing.
Mm.
So you will see that in large conglomerates as well. That suddenly you will hear, oh my God, in the next 3 years, 2,000 people are going to superannuate. All that knowledge, that skill, all, but like what is going on? Uh, or this person did not, this person in this cadre just did not. So also a level of complacency sets in. Care
Mm.
does not mean we will give you everything and anything and just go ahead and no. That's why the whole importance of the whole leader driven environment, feedback mechanisms show that
Mm.
you care, appreciation, recognition that is timely. That is also how you show that you care.
Mm.
Proper growth opportunities, clarity in PMS cycles. That is also how, as team HR, you are showing you are transparent.
Right.
So what does that mean for your organization? And then, after understanding that, can you be very open about, okay, we are going to have well-being activity, or we are going to have
Mm.
a consistent well-being support group, or we
Mm.
have now a dedicated counselor in-house, anonymity, XYZ, here are the like do maybe a little POC, test it out before you go kaboom with. So again, give you a real example. Some organizations want to show that they care, and one of the ways that the whole caring aspect is showcased through a lot of insurance, medical cover, the whole health, medical support aspects.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
you have adoption leave, paternity leave, maternity leave, bereavement leave, uh, pet leave, whether you have that or not, organizations spend a lot of around this. So I
Yeah.
actually read about an organization that we decided that okay, one simple way we want to be inclusive to the LGBTQ cause for our organization is we'll introduce same-sex insurance policy. We'll just introduce, like it should be like a wow surprise, and that's how we start having these conversations through a launch. So
Right.
intention, very pure, a genuine effort that through this launch. So I'm like, okay, I'm just reading through that piece, and in that article it also talks about that just launched it without any awareness, any education, any internal conversation, and almost 60% of the organization signed up their spouses, their husbands, their wives. And then the HRBP team of that organization had once again ended up having that many conversations, that many complaints and service messages raised, that because before launch of any caregiving initiative or care, uh, yeah, are you first doing a dipstick and checking understanding, doing some awareness, some education, and then bring it?
That's a fascinating point, Firoza, because I think that sometimes we can be very taken in And rightfully so, because I've been in HR. So, sometimes there's so much pressure to create quote unquote impact, or to do a set of activities. And I was talking to someone this morning who told me that, I think that person didn't know that I have an HR background and ended up saying, what work does HR have? And,
My God,
they're
like,
just,
never say that. Like, I have my CHR with my clients. But there's a
yeah, I know.
difference.
But I've reached a point where I found it. I was curious. I was like, oh, okay, tell me more. So what does an HRBP really do? And all they want to do is a set of activities. Now, this can be the classic Pygmalion effect, which is that you respond to a certain set of expectations. But I like what you just said, which is that how much ever the temptation to do the latest fad or the latest activity, customize it to your organization by building the right ground for the sapling to grow. So, building the ground would mean, creating a sense of awareness, a certain quality of sensitivity, maybe some conversations, and then choose to plant the seed, rather than, just throw seed bombs and hope that the rain will take care of it. So thank you for saying that. And I have I've spent a lot of years myself in HR, and I have deep respect for good HR professionals, for they for we are caregivers to organizations as much as leaders are. So my favorite question these days for you, and now for you, Feroza, is if leaders were caregivers to the organization, what can leaders learn from caregivers?
I think really the first thing that just pops up is um, it's not about me, it's about we. Like,
Mm,
when we first just start there, uh,
right.
really cutting across through all the conversations I've had, and like I said, it's usually the
Mm,
tough ones, or I sometimes feel I also get branded by my clients that, oh, you want to learn how to have difficult conversations, call Feroza. Or like, even when we get these reference calls, sometimes this is what I hear, that, I got your reference, and you helped that leader have that really difficult, that NASCOM event or that fest. Um, I think caregiving, even conversations, if you are open about these things, even at home, if it's not hush hush, if it's not, no, no, I don't want to say that I'm taking care of my grandmother at home. No, no, no. I don't want my boss to know that. I'll just say I'm not well.
mm,
This is a conversation you are avoiding. This
yeah,
is a moment. Uh, and I will pick up that pattern, because now you are also avoiding conversations at work,
yeah,
regarding this, regarding X, regarding Y. So, which
yeah,
saw are we sharpening?
yeah,
Not having these conversations. So, I think
yeah,
a caring leader is courageous enough to know when to keep mum and
mm,
give good support.
yeah,
That's what you also understand as a caregiver. You can't
yeah,
push. You also
yeah,
need to know, okay, this is my boundary. This is all I can do. I think you get to learn that growing up if you are in that position. So that's
yeah.
one. Uh, Two, um, this whole aspect of we'll figure it out.
Mm,
I have worked with so many women leaders who, of course, are literally handling really large P&Ls and have like a
mm,
chaotic job, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Like, when I look at their calendars, I'm like, is going on? Like, what is going on? And yet
Yeah.
they are expected to do again 500 things. So sometimes I also feel that it is about that little energy management. Like as a caregiver, you cannot lose yourself
Mm,
in the process, mentally,
mm,
emotionally, physically. I think leaders also who have really tough jobs, really crazy schedules, large teams to manage, hybrid, different geographies. I am always intending towards like how are we managing our energy. We don't have to be super
nice.
productive. Don't have, and this is so true with caregivers also, right? Like it engulfs our whole world. Like it just
True.
so like just really, I think we could learn that as well.
Just to reiterate the previous point, the way that I'd phrase it is that what leaders can learn from caregivers is managing ambiguity, because you are constantly saying that I don't necessarily know what this is. I'm probably walking in the dark. I'm walking through a jungle, but you know what? We will walk together and we will figure it out, because that's what a caregiver does when someone is unwell and navigating a difficult illness. You don't necessarily know, which side you're going to come out of, but you have the faith to navigate the path, and that's so valuable, because leaders sometimes don't necessarily have all the answers. So that's certainly one thing that leaders could learn from caregivers. And I particularly also like the challenge of managing our energy, because in our increasingly complex and demanding lives in urban living, there's a constant draw on our energies, right? And we are often left depleted, and you have to constantly, rebalance or find your grounding or find your balance. And there is some magic that caregiving teaches you, which leaders could actively dip into.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, very lovely insights, Feroza, there. And how might you think that
Mhm.
a system or an organization, why is it important for an organization to, in the spirit of what you said about inclusion, right? Include this new category of people who have caregiving experience.
I don't know. Maybe I want to think about that. That if we want to hire people with caregiving experience, like should that be your core focus, or um, maybe after deeply understanding the culture, and more importantly, what is your work ethic like? Right? It can't be, if, for example, if the leadership culture and the work ethic is there is chaos 24/7 and nobody has a sort of idea what is going on the main goal because the goalpost is changing. If it's that kind of environment, then there's not going to be immediate scope to introduce. Okay, we will have more intentional feedback. We will do this. If you don't change this, because then you will just be
Love it.
right. You will just be like I call it. You will be doing lipstick bindi kumkum. the the core is not changing, but you'll do these few little activities, and one tiny trigger, a bad email, a bad feedback from the client, a deadline last, or a P&L goof up. Even if it's a tiny trigger, then once again kaboom, like so that is why, first of all, I don't know if we want to keep the focus as I want to hire people with more caregiving attitude capabilities versus how can I create a caring organization, how can I
Right.
create systems that challenge me and that also take care of me.
That's right.
So yes, you need sound leadership, you need engaged leadership to drive it from the front, but you
Mhm.
also need your processes and your systems to hold up that piece. So you can't have a far more work life balance conversation at work for women, but if you are not giving paternity leave at all, so what message are you giving?
Yeah.
So is there a balance in this before you sign up before you decide to create just one another women leadership development program? But who is preparing the men to receive it? Like where are they? Where are they to
Yeah.
receive all this lovely development that our women are going? So
Has been my peeve for a while.
right. So that's where not so much about hiring, but systems that showcase care and a little bit of challenge and courage, so that we are keeping the org goals and the individual goals thoda aligned. How how are your communication channels showing up? Do they like your, whether it is communication of your policies, your processes, your daily changes, is it over communication, or do people have no clue what is going on? Because some people also feel care is, ha, I got to know, I at least got to know, I don't know what is going on, but at least we got that email that this is happening, like I may not. So how are you filtering information? How are your communication channels, just apart from your HR processes and your systems, PR, internal comms, internal marketing? Um, are we showing that we also care, or are we just doing that through roses on Women's Day? Like, how is that going? What is going on there? That conversation as well. I also feel with a lot of so-called progressive organizations that focus highly on ergonomic infrastructure and making the infrastructure very, very inclusive with bean bags and this and creche and gender neuter bathrooms, swings, free food, la la la. I mean, that's great. Like that's really great. But like, if in an organization like that, if you can't stand working with your leader, if you can't ever have a meeting with your HRBP, if you have no clue who is doing what, but you have all these other things, then you may not be an engaged enough employee even to care.
Yeah.
So none of your caregiving initiatives are going to address this person.
Yeah.
So that's like my third place. That what about your, just not how now, just great how your infrastructure is, but again coming back to reason to come to work, people, my
Yeah.
everyday, you know,
That's right.
that would be what we would look at.
Yeah, yeah. I was recently talking to a friend who said, I bought this fancy house, which is really top end, but I'm choosing not to relocate there because, you know what, my friends and community are in this building. So I don't really care about the plush top end home. I'd rather live here because, the soft.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, so I really wanted to
I'm also
circle.
so sick of this, micro learning, micro thoughts, micro care, micro leadership, micro music. I'm so sick of that as well because, yes, I agree that care also happens in moments, uh, not pushing someone, uh, listening to someone without your agenda, uh, just showing up. Even you have no freaking clue what to do, but just showing up as a leader for some of the personal things. Like, I know these are also really small micro moments, but don't make them so micro that you can't feel them, or maybe you can't address them. So Yeah. When you said, I was like, there's no micro care.
No micro care. Yes, absolutely. Also now it's not just micro, it's nano. Just saying. It's
I'm
nano
living under
learning.
a rock.
We spoke initially about inclusion, and we spoke about women leaders, and we spoke about how hard it can sometimes be for women leaders to kind of persevere at the workplace because the demands of, care at home can sometimes be larger. Not sometimes, more often than not, are larger. And it adds up, it compounds over time, and it means that women are not reaching leadership decision making positions as frequently and in as many numbers as we would want them to. Yeah. um, I certainly opted out of the ladder for a set of reasons that are unique to me. One could attribute that for most women, right? And say, okay, this one left for this personal reason and that personal reason and that, and so on. However, there is also a systemic reality. Yeah. There is something to be said about organizations or the societies or systems that is not enabling women to reach positions of leadership. Yeah? How do you see
Hmm.
that women can be included in ways that they can be nurtured to reach positions of decision making? Because only then, to my mind, your initiatives of diversity are bearing fruit or giving you the returns, right? You brought women into the workforce, but if they are not changing how the organization is making decisions, uh, then
Hmm.
it's not as effective.
Hmm. So I'm going to give you a very nuanced response, but also it is also what I've experienced, I've seen, um, and I also heard. I remember in one video, Indira Nooyi talking about, if you have to just look at life stages of women and life stages of men, and we just look at those age stamps. She
Yeah,
very nicely articulates that when women are, in their early 20s, it's just all about get married, look good, get thin, get fair. I'm like really talking about the larger India,
yeah, yeah,
like the
yeah,
larger
totally.
demographic, right? It's the focus at that age. But for a boy or a young adult man, it's
Yeah,
literally like get a job. Like what the hell are you doing in your
yeah.
20s? Like just you know. Uh,
Start earning.
yeah. Now let's assume, okay, maybe for certain women that age stamp is not a problem. Chalo, great, ho gaya. But when you're actually coming to your first promotion or you're coming to your like your big global role, roughly 24,
Yeah,
25, or whatever that again that age stamp,
yeah,
that's when women are expected baby, 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 or get
yeah,
married, get married. Okay,
yeah,
got married. Okay, then finally now when you're ready to take up an HOD position, you have spent like a good decade in the role. You have, oh my God, gone through a lot of issues,
yeah,
but you finally reach the so-called C-suite, that thoda that kind of belt. But now that's the time when your kids are going through their SSC or their HSC, the 12th. So again, you are expected.
yeah,
So, when she spoke about that, and when you also really look at a lot of data, that does match. And that's why it's
yeah,
like a leaky pipeline that from
yeah,
senior manager to VP, or that, like, that's the pipeline. What are we doing? And again, I always feel it's not what we are doing at that stage, but what are
yeah.
we really doing at the education stage? So my response
Totally.
here is a little nuanced that if the situation and the conditioning at home doesn't change, then we are really just building super women who are expected to slog at work also and stand up to the man there Sadly, that doesn't happen. You come back home, you're doing the same thing here, and you're again either standing up to patriarchy, matriarchy, or whatever there. So
Yeah.
nothing has actually changed, sadly. But I know, I do know there is hope where you also start being very deliberate with your hiring lens. Don't just hire, you don't just hire from certain colleges or only from certain areas. A diversity lens can also help you there. Overall, more intentional, more meaningful, not just okay, uh, tick in the box, not.
Yeah.
But that could that could help as well. Um,
Yeah.
you were saying something. Sorry, Bhavna.
No, I think that that's such a valuable thing because I think that sometimes what we perceive as diversity in one factor may actually turn out in something else. So, for example, you may have, and this is the sad reality of our country, you may go to, just for the sake of taking a name, you may go to IITs looking for engineers, and you may find many women, but they are likely to come from urban India where there is a certain comfort, one, access for IIT coaching, etc., or two, comfort with hostels.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We know for sure that you are more likely to get women engineers from the local engineering college where the girl doesn't have to go to a hostel,
Correct. Yeah,
right? So, in hiring from not so premier institutes, you may actually bring in a very diverse life experience of a woman who wasn't allowed to go to a hostel. And
yep,
she will create very different systems. She will think very, very differently than actually both men and women from IITs,
absolutely. Yeah,
right?
and that is a
So,
barrier. That is a
yeah,
barrier when not. Again, that's why each stage of the team member's life journey, whether it is before hiring, there are places you can showcase care.
yeah,
During the interview conversations, are you being a dingbat and just
yeah,
asking questions which are nonsensical and not required?
yeah,
Hiring process. Then how are you keeping that team member engaged? What about learning? What about leadership, feedback, growth? Like that's what I mean. That is core HR work. That is
yeah.
how you insert care, those micro moments or those intentional conversations. um, yeah, yeah,
This may have been a question that I should have first asked, but at the end of this conversation, I would like to, just take your perspective on it. In
sure.
your definition, who is a caregiver?
Someone who thinks we before me, uh, someone who's not just giving that care to others, but but someone who's also being little mindful of uh, caring for themselves deeply. It's the toughest kind of thing to do. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it.
Well, that definition is rather universal, and I really wish that all of us saw ourselves as caregivers. And after all, we are all caregivers. We are on the top of the hour, and more than that, thank you so much, Firoza. You and I can have very, very long conversations and go in multiple directions. I look forward to many such conversations. Any closing remarks as we bring this conversation today to a close? How was this for you?
Thank you for this opportunity. I think I'm very passionate about this space overall, um,
Right.
because deeply my intention here has been to just um, help leaders see, first see and understand their own leadership style, And if care is not a part of it, then let's talk. Let's think about this and how can it show up for you. Like I'm deeply passionate about that piece. So thank you, thank you for this.
Thank you. And I really look forward to another conversation where we can infuse a little more of your other area of passion, which is humor. So, how do we bring humor into caregiving? Could be an interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Firoza.
Thank you, Bhavna. You're doing great. Keep this going. You have all my cheer.
Thank you.